Tenakoto katoa. Kia ora, y'all. It is Holly Morchat here. I'm the GM of engagement at ACE New Zealand, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to another of our Lightning Series webinars. If you've never joined one of our Lightning Series, basically it's content in 15 minutes or less. So we like to keep it short and sharp. And then there's additional time on top of that for Q&A. But if you need to bail out after the 15 minutes or something pops up, no worries. This is being recorded. And as long as you've registered for this, you'll be emailed a copy of the recording later today or when we publish it. Okay, so a bit more on the housekeeping. Everybody's auto muted to cut down on line noise. But if you do have a question, feel free to type that into the chat or the Q&A area, and we will moderate those questions at the end of the presentation. And yeah, so we'll kick in. Today's webinar is how to pre-position to win a project. And we've got both Ben, Paul, and Piers Riley from the BD Ladder. So I'm going to hand over to Ben and Paul, and we'll kick straight into our content. Cheers.
Hi, thanks, Holly. Myself and Piers are delighted to be doing this. We both work in the bid space and with engineers and across professional services, but won't do any too many formal introductions. We'll just crack into what we're talking about today. What we're looking about is how you pre-position to win a project. And we're going to look at that from both in the engineering space. We know that sometimes there's 6 months to 2 years, 3 years, even longer before big infrastructure projects come out, before an RFP hits the market. What can you do in that time? What can you do with the client, and what can you do in-house with your teams to build that kind of ready to go for when that RFP hits? Because in a lot of cases, you will have to bid for these projects. The first thing actually is pretty simple, is understand what the actual project is. I mean, what is it? But more importantly, from the client side, from the government side, whatever it might be, what are their main aims and objectives? What are they trying to achieve? What is the ultimate outcome? Who are the key stakeholders? Who's responsible for the project? Which organizations and people is involved? The more information you gather here, the more you understand the wider implications of it, the more stakeholders are involved, if the community is affected, which communities, iwi, whichever it might be, the better understanding of the project you have. It's a really good key starting point to go on to. Next thing, Piers.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Ben. And thanks for having us on, Holly. So forming a pursuits team. So bearing in mind, this is all before the RFP has come out. Based on what you know, who are the right people to have as part of your pursuits team? So that could be the pursuits and client relations director. That isn't necessarily the most senior person in the organization or the team. It can actually be someone that holds good relationships with the client. So trying to find out who knows the client, has dealt with them before, can often be a good way of building relationships with them. Technical experts, you might be an engineer yourself with good technical expertise, but is there anyone else in the organization that has any particular niche bits of knowledge, expertise, that would add some significant value into the bid? BD and bid experts as well. Ben and I might be a bit biased on this, but it is always good to have people, whether inside the organization or outside the organization, that can offer a bit more of a different insight into how to approach a bid outside of engineers and other people with technical experience, consultants from outside as well. If you don't have the experience in-house, is there anyone from outside that you can draw in to build the value, the expertise that you can offer to your client? And partner organizations, it's really important to make sure that the people that you're looking to engage outside of your organization, that you're looking to partner with, are actually available. There's nothing more embarrassing than saying to a client, oh yeah, we can deliver this, and then when it comes to it, the people that you're looking to partner with are saying, actually, we can't actually deliver on this due to the time. I think next one for us, Ben, please. Cool. So building your winning messaging and solutions. I think messaging and solutions are actually two parts. So what are the solutions that you're going to deliver that the client's looking for, and how will you actually deliver the messaging, communicate this with your clients? So understanding or building your project value proposition is really important. This isn't looking at sort of all the standard things that your competitors can say. So a value proposition is not saying we have X amount of people across the world, unless that's something that's really important. It's what are the things that you offer value-wise that your competitors cannot deliver. And if you look at what your value proposition is, and you can think, right, our competitors can say that as well, then you've got to kind of think, what can we offer that our competitors can't? And also considering, I think taking a real clear view and understanding of who the key decision makers are in the client is really important, because, for example, if they are technical experts that are going to be evaluating your tender, then you want to make your tender response a lot more technically focused. Whereas if it's individuals that are more commercially focused, making your response more appealing to sort of the commercial aspects that they would really value is really important too. And I think back over to you, Ben.
And the next thing is you've got to build a contact plan. So the most important part of all these projects and pre-positioning is not to sit in your office and wait. Waiting for the RFP is a recipe for losing, because it isn't just evaluated on the RFP, and you won't understand the project and you won't have built rapport with the client where your competitors may have done. So understand within your organization who will be contacting who at the client, who are you going to line up to go and meet with them, and then understand how you're going to meet with them. How often is your relationship key stakeholders at the client? Is it going to be quarterly? Is it going to be monthly? How often? Build that in, create a plan for that and try and stick to it. And then try and work with the client on a kind of project timeline and delivery plan. So what is it that you're actually working on? Can you build a solution in advance? Can you start getting ahead of the game and actually feel like you're working with them ahead of the RFP coming out? That may shape the RFP. If you're someone if you can actually help shape the RFP and the questions, you're in a much better place to win when it does come out. And the next thing on the back of it is also, as a contact plan, build a marketing plan. What are you going to say to the market? How are you going to position yourself as a leading organization in this field? What content will you write and share? Do your bios and LinkedIn profiles need updating? If you're saying you're experts in tunneling, is your tunneling expertise shown on your website? Is it shown on your personal bio? Put it up there. Get the relevant articles and case studies out ahead of the RFP. Can you share them in relevant magazines? If nothing else, get them ready. The more you share, the more you put out there, obviously not breaching IP, the better it will be. The more you position yourself as the firm of choice, the firm that they should pick and most likely to pick. And you're going to have any client or industry seminars or webinars, get those out there as well. The more you can interact with people, the more you can bring them into your building, the more you can network with them, the better it will be. Here's.
Great. So buyers and case studies. So looking to build out the buyers. So focus on buyers first. We can be building these as the earlier the better. The more drafts you do, the better the quality we always find. And you want to be able to, once the RFP lands, you want to be able to have a good set of bios to be able to work from and not be building from scratch at that point. Simply sort of copy and pasting your website bio and going job done, that's not the way this, that's not what clients really look for now. They want something that's really, really tailored. But moving on to case studies, what we've actually found, and specifically within government tenders, is the tender requirements focusing more on case studies and moving away from bios as well. So what we find with the case studies is that they focus on these three core elements mostly all the time, which is who did the work, what was the outcome, and of course supporting your case study with all the great things and great quotes, all the great things the clients are saying about you. So providing something that is super tailored to the RFP is really important, and focusing on not just what the outcomes were, but clients want to get a good understanding of how you will work with them during the engagement. So making the case study as relevant to the tender response is, it goes without saying, is super important. So moving on to the pricing side as well, do it early. Don't be shy. Have this conversation with clients. I've come from working in London fairly recently, and what people do in London very well is they have these conversations with around the pricing side. clients know that you need to remain profitable. So don't be shy having that conversation. Price to scope, and don't over engineer it. I think it's really important. Clients want transparency over what the likely costs will be like, and for them to be able to see how the pricing works during the engagement as well. So make sure that the pricing that you are doing is also relevant to the process, and that you're not sort of throwing all these other metrics that might not apply. And what we're finding is firms moving away and clients moving away from the hourly rates. They'd like to see pricing metrics that your competitors can't offer, so things that would really add value. So I think part of this fits in well in with Ben's contact plan, actually, is understanding from the client, is there actually pricing metrics outside of hourly rates and fixed pricing that they would really, really value? Because if you're able to put that in there, and your competitors aren't, that's a significant competitive edge that you'll be delivering there. So over to you, Ben.
And next thing, as you're learning more from the client, is to go back to the original starting point of what your winning messages are. So you've learned more about the project now, you understand what it is, you've tested some things, they like some stuff, they didn't like some other stuff, so rewrite it. It's best practice to have an executive summary ready to go ahead of an RFP. Yes, you don't know the requirements, but you know what the project is, you know what the key factors are, you know what the key case studies you're going to bring to the fore are and who the team are. You can start building that winning themes, key messages, one-page exec summary, and that can keep you focused on what you are, and it will get you ahead of the game when you're in a tight timeline to prepare a pitch response. And the next thing to do, Piers, or the final thing almost
the final. So refine the bid response team with so now that you understand what you're looking what the requirements are, as you engage with the client, do you need extra resources? Do you need, that doesn't have to be just in terms of budget, that can be in terms of people. Do you need to bring extra people in, extra experts into the team to be able to deliver? One of the first slides we said was putting your, getting your bid team ready. This is all before the RFPs come out. So once you've spoken to the client, understand what you need, what they're looking for, your proposed team can actually change to adapt to those changes. New partners. So this is looking at people that you partner with outside your organization. Are there any other experts that you could bring in that would really add value to what the client's looking for? And I think over to you, Ben, for the conclusion.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add on that is the early introduced experts, particularly if you're leveraging overseas expertise, the quicker and better in the process you introduce them to the client, the more likely they are to resonate and more likely they are to want to work with them. It's still very much a personal game. Yes, they'll value the expertise, but don't leave it as a surprise. Get them to start building rapport and understand the project. Otherwise, it feels that someone from America, Asia, UK is just coming in to kind of just do the work and leave. So make them feel more engaged with the project, and that way they'll embed more. So in conclusion, I mean, as we said there, you've got to engage a client as early and as often as possible. The more time you get to meet them, the more time you share your ideas and test them with the client, the better it will be. You almost want to build it with them and go along the journey, so it feels like you've helped them sculpt their solution and you're going on the path together, rather than you're trying to solve something for them. So if you can do it in a collaborative way, it's always going to be received much better. And plan your response as you go. These things take a lot of time. As Piers will attest, he writes a lot more than I do. These things take a lot of time and effort. The earlier you are, the more engaged you are, the better the response will be. You can focus on it, and you can spend the weeks when the RFP comes out refining and aligning it to the questions, rather than trying to information gather and have a massive headache and burn the midnight oil. Get there early, you have more chance of success. It's much, much more rewarding. And here's a list of our supporting material, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Brilliant. Thank you guys so much. So yeah, now that opens up our Q&A. So if you could just type in any questions you have, either in the Q&A section, but we're also monitoring the chat. I think that's a really good point that you guys touched in the conclusion about making it collaborative, but also like not making it a rush and a hustle to the end. If you consistently do this kind of work in advance, then you won't put that undue burden and pressure on the rest of your team, potentially burning yourself out. And ultimately, you'll be able to deliver better work, I think, for the client. So thank you very much. And as they've said, they've some supporting material in there. I'm not seeing any questions come in, but these are just kind of designed to be really short and sharp, bullet pointed material for our audience. I'll give it another little bit just to see if anyone's got some questions. Yeah. Are there any trends that you're seeing in the way people pre-position?
I think it's fair to say that people are starting to wise up to it. It's not universally being done as much as it should, but some of the more larger firms who've got, in-house teams supporting them are starting to drive this. And you're seeing roles globally of pursuits managers rather than bid specialists. You're seeing both. Some of the big global firms will have a pursuits manager and a bid manager, and they work in harmony and almost dovetail. Because if you're turning something, so 3 years down the line, and it's a massive project, and if you win it, it transforms your consultancy. It's really worth investing the time. But if you follow that even on the smaller scale, so some of the smaller consultancies, this is best practice. It's the best way to go, and you can do it on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Because particularly with government, as soon as that RFP lands, you can't talk to them.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to find out the info you need.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. And to answer Matt's question, yes, a recording will be available. That'll be emailed to everyone who's registered. So even if you weren't able to make it, or if you had a colleague that wasn't able to make it, as long as they registered, that recording will be emailed out. Okay, I'll check the Q&A. Do you see a difference in public versus private procurement?
It is. I'll let you start with that one.
Yes, there is a difference with the public. So we're talking about sort of public sector, government sector versus corporate. I'll take that as the public government sector is quite form based, so set templates and quite tick boxy and weighted on each area, where we're seeing a lot more emphasis on with the government tenders is on broader outcomes. We've seen significant increases in broader outcomes. So not just the value you bring in terms of the services, but how you're supporting communities, whether that's getting, sort of pathways for Barren Pacific Islanders to find employment and to upskill. And also we've seen an increase in government agencies looking at, particularly interested in female leadership and how your company promotes female leadership. We find with corporate-based RFPs is still very much value-based on the services. They are, of course, very interested and want to know about your broader outcomes. But there's a lot more room to play with it in terms of templates. Questions aren't quite as prescribed. So there's a lot more, I'm trying to think of the word, there's just a lot more wiggle room in terms of the materials that you can put together. Anything you've seen, Ben, to add to that?
I think that's true. I think sometimes you can almost, a tender is almost sometimes irrelevant in the corporate. It's more less tick box and more kind of how you're going to offer it and what does it cost, and can you be succinct and show us a really creative way of displaying it, whereas sometimes you're a bit hamstrung by the RFP, which needs to be, for probity reasons in the government sector, a little bit more rigorous. But it's a really important point you make about broader outcomes, and it's not just putting a policy out there that you have an environmental policy and all that. They actually want to see how you live and breathe it. So if you don't have this and you aren't engaging in it properly, it's a really good idea to look at it, speak to whoever in your organization is responsible for it. And I'd actually even recommend getting consultants in. It's not something that we do, but get consultants in to actually help you with that ESG policy, because if you haven't got it and it's not coming to life, you are going to struggle to win these things in the next 3 or 4 years. There's no manner of wordsmithing that will get you through it. The government will see, the RFP panel will see through that. They want to see that you're actually doing this stuff and making a real engagement with the community and broader outcomes.
Wonderful. Brilliant. I think that's kind of wrapped up all the open questions that we've got. And I think that brings us to a really good place to wrap up. But to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in today. And of course, thank you, Ben and Piers, for your time. In the chat, if you guys click, I've included a link to our previous ACE New Zealand events. Those are basically previous webinars, and we've got recordings of those. Ben and his team at the BD Ladder have done several of these lightning webinars with us, and more lengthy webinars as well. And I think some of those recordings might help you if you've got more interest in this space. I know we did one on, top 7 tips for your LinkedIn, using Chat GPT to help do some of this writing. You might even be able to use it for your case study. So take a look on that link, see if any of our other previous webinar recordings might help you in this. And then, of course, when we email out the recording today, I'm going to CC both Ben and Pierce on an email, so feel free to get in touch with them directly. Brilliant. So again, thanks to everyone. Thanks to Ben and Pierce. And feel free to reach out to us at ACE New Zealand if you've got any suggestions for future content, whether that be longer webinars or more in this lightning series that we try and do. All right. Thanks so much, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.